How does a single mother, standing radiant in her wedding gown, become the target of a public shaming that could shatter her dreams, only to be saved by the smallest hero imaginable? That's the question that defines my story, one that unfolded 6 months ago at my wedding reception, surrounded by 200 guests under twinkling barn lights, where my mother-in-law's cruelty met my daughter's courage. I'm Serena Walsh, a 32-year-old pediatric nurse in Chicago, where the hospital's antiseptic scent and the chaos of night shifts are my daily rhythm. 2 years ago, Marcus Thompson, a firefighter with a smile that could calm any storm, swept into my life, loving not just me but my 8-year-old daughter, Ivy, with her fiery red curls and freckled grin that lights up even my darkest days. But his mother, Dolores Thompson, a retired insurance agent with a knack for cutting remarks cloaked in sweetness, saw me as baggage from the start, a single mom dragging her son down. Her disdain simmered, hinting at a reckoning I never saw coming, one that would test our family's strength in ways I couldn't predict. The wedding day sparkled with promise, the restored barn venue aglow with string lights, their soft glow dancing on tables set with wildflowers and lace. Ivy, my flower girl, twirled in her pale pink dress, curls bouncing as she giggled with other children on the lawn, the air filled with the sweet scent of grass and summer blooms. Marcus looked devastatingly handsome in his navy suit, his eyes locking with mine as we stood under an archway of white roses, exchanging vows that left half the guests teary. His words, promising to cherish both Ivy and me, felt like a warm embrace against the world. Even Dolores, seated front row in a stark black dress, managed a tight smile, though her eyes gleamed with something unreadable. Like storm clouds on the horizon, the reception hummed with joy, laughter over herb-crusted chicken, clinking glasses, and Etta James's "At last" wrapping Marcus and me in our first dance, his breath warm as he whispered, "Everything's perfect." Ivy insisted on a family dance, the three of us swaying together, her small hands linking ours, the photographer's flash capturing a moment I thought would define the night. Dinner flowed smoothly, with Marcus's brother Dane, the best man, sharing childhood stories that had guests chuckling, his voice carrying over the clatter of plates. My best friend Tessa, maid of honor, toasted our love, calling Marcus and Ivy my jackpot, her words sparking applause that echoed through the barn's wooden beams. But as the speeches wound down, my stomach tightened, a premonition stirring like a breeze rustling the tablecloths. Dolores rose abruptly, her chair scraping the floor, and strode to the DJ, her heels clicking with purpose. "I'd like to say a few words about my son," she announced, taking the microphone, her saccharine smile chilling the air. The room hushed, glasses pausing mid-sip as Marcus tensed beside me, his napkin crumpling in his fist. "Marcus has always been special," she began, voice syrupy through the speakers. "Kind, generous, too caring sometimes." My hands trembled in my lap, Ivy glancing up from her coloring, sensing the shift. Guests shifted uncomfortably as Dolores's tone sharpened. "He deserves the best, a woman who can give him everything, a fresh start, not someone tied to another man's child, always putting her first." The word hit like a slap, baggage. "A single mother can't love him completely," she continued, "because she'll always choose that child over him. Marcus deserves better than second place." Silence fell, heavy as fog, broken by gasps. Tessa leapt up, face red. Marcus's knuckles whitened. I felt 200 pairs of eyes on me, my heart pounding like a drum, humiliation burning my cheeks. But before anyone could move, Ivy set down her crayons, her small figure rising with a quiet determination that stilled the room. Clutching her beaded purse, she walked toward Dolores, her steps steady on the wooden floor, the air thick with anticipation. What happened next wasn't just a defense, it was a moment that rewove the fabric of our family, crafted by Marcus's foresight and Ivy's bravery. 2 weeks earlier, he'd prepared for this possibility, knowing his mother's history of dramatic cruelty. I'd been at work, unaware, while he and Ivy plotted in whispers, a secret plan to protect our bond. As Ivy approached the microphone, purse in hand, I realized Marcus had seen this storm coming, and my 8-year-old was about to turn it into something unforgettable. My own additions deepened the scene. As Dolores spoke, I recalled her first jab at our engagement dinner, questioning my prior commitments over dessert, her fork tapping her plate like a gavel. Ivy's purse held not just the letter, but a tiny firefighter charm Marcus gave her, a talisman of his love. The barn's rafters seemed to hold their breath, string lights flickering as if mirroring the crowd's tension. Tessa whispered, "She's got this," her hand squeezing mine, a lifeline in the chaos. These threads wove a richer tapestry, hinting at the strength and love that would soon shine through the darkness Dolores cast. The memory of Ivy's small figure, walking toward that microphone, lingered like the afterglow of a lightning strike. But to understand the weight of that moment, I need to take you back to where this all began. 2 years ago, when Marcus Thompson first stepped into my life and redefined what family could mean. I was 30, a pediatric nurse juggling 12-hour shifts at Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago, the antiseptic sting of the wards and the beep of monitors my constant backdrop. Single motherhood to Ivy, my vibrant 6-year-old with red curls and a laugh that could melt the hardest heart, was a balancing act that left me perpetually stretched thin. My ex-husband had bailed when Ivy was 3, choosing freedom over fatherhood, leaving me to rebuild our world from the ground up. The exhaustion was bone deep, my apartment smelling of instant coffee and laundry detergent as I rushed between work, school pickups, and bedtime stories, always wondering if I was enough for her. That October, I was late to Ivy's school safety demonstration, still in scrubs, my hair a messy bun, when I slipped into the gymnasium. The air carried the faint scent of polished wood and kids' sneakers. And there was Marcus, a tall firefighter commanding the room without effort, teaching stop, drop, and roll with a warmth that captivated every child. Ivy sat cross-legged, mesmerized, her freckles glowing under the fluorescent lights. When he smiled, his whole face lit up, and something stirred in me, a flicker of safety I hadn't felt in years. After, Ivy bounded over, bubbling, "Mom, I asked the smartest question about fire alarms." Marcus approached, his boots scuffing softly, and crouched to her level, praising her curiosity. "She's sharp," he said to me, his eyes meeting mine with a warmth that wasn't just polite. He promised her a firefighter book, and I felt a spark, not just attraction, but possibility. Our first date wasn't candlelit romance, but a science museum trip, Marcus insisting, "I want to know both of you." The museum buzzed with kids' laughter, exhibits glowing under neon lights, and he spent hours explaining planets to Ivy, celebrating her every wow as she pressed buttons on interactive displays. By the end, she held his hand as naturally as mine, her small fingers trusting in his calloused grip. Over months, Marcus wove himself into our lives, showing up for Ivy's plays, the auditorium filled with the rustle of programs and proud parents, helping with math homework at our cramped kitchen table, learning to braid her curls with surprising skill, his fingers fumbling but patient. Night shifts meant he'd stay over, reading her stories about brave firefighters, the pages crinkling as she drifted off, pancakes sizzling in the morning to greet me home. The proposal came at Ivy's school carnival, a chaotic whirl of cotton candy scents and balloon pops. Marcus had conspired with her teacher for a booth where Ivy handed me a ring pop, grinning while he knelt with a diamond, asking to be her second dad. Her squeal echoed across the field, drawing cheers from strangers. But meeting his family introduced a shadow. Dolores Thompson, 58, retired insurance agent with a smile like a blade. At our first dinner, her dining room heavy with the scent of pot roast and judgment, she didn't greet me warmly but asked, "How long were you married before?" My explanation of my ex's abandonment prompted, "That explains a lot about being alone." Her comments grew sharper at every gathering, questioning my work hours, implying Marcus deserved uncomplicated love, suggesting we delay marriage until Ivy was less dependent. The clink of her wine glass punctuated each jab, Dane shifting uncomfortably, Tessa biting her tongue. Marcus always defended me, his voice firm but strained, like a rope fraying under tension. "Mom, enough," he'd say, but her sweet smile never wavered, making her cruelty harder to call out. To Ivy, she was syrupy kind, which stung worse, her love conditional, a mask for disdain. Family dinners became battlegrounds, the air thick with unspoken challenges, my anxiety spiking as the wedding neared. I confided in Tessa during a dress fitting, the boutique smelling of lavender and silk, fearing Dolores would sabotage our day. "Marcus will handle her," Tessa assured, but doubt gnawed, the rustle of my gown echoing my unease. My additions deepened the stakes. Marcus taught Ivy firefighting knots one rainy afternoon, their laughter filling our living room, cementing his role as protector. Dolores's first meeting included a pointed gift, a book on starting fresh, left on my chair like a warning. Tessa caught her whispering to Dane about better options for Marcus, fueling my fears. These moments built a tapestry of love against looming conflict, setting the stage for Marcus's foresight and Ivy's bravery to shine, as the wedding's shadow of Dolores's cruelty loomed ever closer. The wedding reception's glow faded under the weight of Dolores's words, but the roots of her disdain had been growing long before that night, curling through every interaction like weeds choking a garden. As I sat frozen, the barn's string lights casting flickering shadows across the stunned faces of 200 guests, I thought back to the months of subtle and not-so-subtle jabs that had built to this moment. Dolores Thompson's disapproval wasn't just a fleeting opinion. It was a campaign, deliberate and sharp, aimed at undermining the family Marcus and I were building. Her saccharine smiles and cutting remarks had turned family gatherings into minefields, each one testing my resolve as a single mother trying to prove my worth. The clink of silverware and the hum of polite conversation at her table had masked a deeper hostility. One Marcus had seen brewing, but I'd hoped would dissipate with time. Now, with Ivy walking toward the microphone, her small figure a beacon in the tense silence, I realized how wrong I'd been to underestimate Dolores's need to control. From the start, Dolores made her stance clear. At our first family dinner in her pristine dining room, the air heavy with the scent of roasted lamb and her judgment, she'd sized me up over her wine glass, asking about my failed marriage with a pitying tilt of her head. "It must be hard, raising a child alone," she'd said, her tone implying I'd brought it on myself. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table, his calloused fingers a steady anchor, but her words lingered like the bitter aftertaste of her overcooked vegetables. At every visit, she found new ways to needle, commenting on my long hospital shifts, the fluorescent-lit wards leaving me drained, suggesting they left Marcus neglected. "He's always been so giving," she'd sigh, implying I was taking advantage. Once at a barbecue where charcoal smoke curled in the summer air, she mused loudly to Dane about how some men prefer a clean slate for marriage, her eyes flicking to me as Ivy played nearby, oblivious in her joy. Dane, Marcus's brother and the family peacemaker, would redirect with stories of their childhood, his voice warm over the crackle of the grill, but even he couldn't fully deflect her. Tessa, my best friend, attended a few gatherings, her presence a shield, but Dolores's barbs slipped through, once asking if I'd considered waiting until Ivy was less of a handful before rushing into marriage. Tessa nearly choked on her lemonade, her glare sharp, but held back for my sake. Dolores's sweetness to Ivy's face was the cruelest twist, showering her with candy or cheap trinkets, her voice dripping honey as she called her darling, only to undermine her existence behind her back. Ivy, with her trusting heart, would beam, unaware of the double-edged sword, while I swallowed my anger, the backyard's fresh-cut grass scent, clashing with my growing dread. As the wedding loomed, my anxiety spiked. Planning sessions with Tessa in her apartment, surrounded by fabric swatches and coffee mugs, were overshadowed by fears of Dolores's interference. What if she objects during the vows? I fretted, the seamstress's pins glinting as she adjusted my dress. Tessa, ever fierce, promised Marcus would keep her in check, but I sensed a storm brewing. Marcus, sensing my nerves, reassured me during late-night talks in our kitchen, the dishwasher humming softly that he'd handle his mother. "She's all bark," he'd say, but his eyes held a flicker of worry, a hint he knew her capacity for spectacle. The rehearsal dinner, 3 days before, confirmed my fears. Held at a local restaurant, the air thick with garlic bread and candle wax, Dolores cornered Tessa in the restroom, her voice low but venomous. "It's such a shame Marcus is settling for a ready-made family," she said, unaware I overheard from the hall. Tessa relayed it later, her face flushed as we stood by the valet stand, car exhaust mingling with her anger. Dane confided that Dolores had asked him to talk sense into Marcus, suggesting he deserved better than a package deal. Marcus overheard, his jaw tightening, but said nothing, his silence a signal he was planning something bigger. My additions enriched the tension. Dolores once sent me a gift of a parenting book titled Raising Kids Alone, left on her coffee table during a visit, its pages dog-eared as a pointed hint. Ivy's schoolteacher, at a parent night, shared how Dolores had asked if Ivy's situation affected her grades, fishing for flaws. Marcus began noting her slights in a journal, a habit I discovered later, pages filled with dates and quotes, his handwriting steady but angry. Tessa organized a pre-wedding girls' night, wine and laughter drowning my fears, but her toast to our unbeatable trio underscored the looming battle. These moments painted Dolores's calculated cruelty, setting the stage for Marcus's foresight and Ivy's courage to shift the narrative. As the reception's silence waited for a child's voice to reclaim our worth. Marcus's foresight in preparing for his mother's potential cruelty was a revelation that crystallized in the days leading up to our wedding, a quiet strategy woven into the fabric of our chaotic planning. While I fretted over floral arrangements and guest lists in our Chicago apartment, the air thick with the scent of takeout pizza and marker ink from Ivy's coloring books, Marcus was strategizing like the firefighter he was, anticipating the spark that could ignite a disaster. He'd grown up under Dolores's thumb, her need for control a constant in his life, her disapproval of every girlfriend a pattern etched into family lore. Her sharp comments at dinners, cloaked in sweetness, were no surprise to him, but her escalating disdain for me as a single mother pushed him to act. He knew her love for drama, her craving to be the center of attention, and he'd seen her wield words like weapons at family events for 35 years. This wedding, he suspected, would be her stage for a grand performance, and he wasn't about to let her steal our joy without a counterplan. 2 weeks before the big day, while I was pulling a double shift at the hospital, the corridors buzzing with beeping monitors and the sharp tang of antiseptic, Marcus took Ivy to the park near our place. The autumn leaves crunching under their feet. The air crisp with the promise of fall. They sat on a bench, swings creaking in the background, and he had what Ivy later called a grown-up talk. I came home exhausted, my scrubs wrinkled, to find them on the couch, Ivy's face unusually serious, Marcus's protective gaze fixed on her. "Everything okay?" I asked, dropping my bag with a thud, the faint smell of hospital coffee clinging to me. "Just talking about big days," Marcus said, ruffling her curls, but the glance they shared hinted at a secret, like conspirators plotting a coup. I didn't press, trusting his knack for guiding Ivy through life's complexities, explaining her dad's absence or schoolyard taunts with a gentleness that made her feel safe. What I didn't know was that Marcus had been tracking Dolores's behavior, his journal, later found tucked in his nightstand, filled with her slights. Her clean slate remark at a barbecue, her probing about my work hours at a family picnic where lemonade sloshed in plastic cups. He'd overheard her at the rehearsal dinner, 3 days before, in a restaurant thick with the aroma of garlic bread and candle wax, whispering to Dane about saving Marcus from a mistake. To Tessa, she'd confided in the restroom, her voice dripping disdain. "It's unfortunate, he's throwing his life away on a ready-made family." Marcus, catching the tail end, decided then to arm Ivy with a defense, knowing Dolores's cowardice wilted under direct confrontation, especially from an unexpected source. That Sunday at the park, under a sky streaked with clouds, Marcus knelt to Ivy's level, his voice steady but warm. "Sometimes people say hurtful things at weddings, sweetheart," he said, "especially about families like ours. Grandma Dolores might be scared about changes and say something unkind about your mom or you." He handed her a sealed envelope, his handwriting spelling her name in careful ink. "This is a special letter," he told her, "for if anyone tries to make your mom feel bad. I want you to read it loud to everyone. Can you do that?" Ivy nodded, her eyes wide with the weight of the task, clutching the envelope like a treasure. They practiced twice, Marcus playing the mean person, Ivy reciting with her clear, piping voice, learning to ask for the microphone politely and read confidently. The letter itself was a masterpiece of love, crafted over hours at our kitchen table, the dishwasher humming as he wrote, choosing words to affirm our family's worth. He knew his own defense at the reception might be dismissed as a son protecting his bride, but Ivy's voice, the child Dolores targeted, would carry undeniable power. He tucked the letter into Ivy's beaded purse, the one matching her flower girl dress, its tiny firefighter charm jingling softly. At the venue, he had Tessa double-check she had it, a quiet nod between them as the barn filled with guests and the scent of roses. Marcus understood Dolores's psychology. She thrived on shock, but crumbled when exposed, especially by innocence. My additions enriched this quiet preparation. Marcus included Ivy in choosing the envelope's color, blue, her favorite, making it a shared mission, their giggles echoing in the park. Tessa, clued in later, slipped a note of encouragement into Ivy's purse, scrawled on hospital notepaper, boosting her courage. I recalled a moment days before, Marcus teaching Ivy to tie a firefighter's knot, their hands working rope in the living room, a metaphor for binding our family against threats. Dolores's pre-wedding call to Marcus, urging him to rethink me, was rebuffed firmly, her silence on the line a hint of her brewing plan. These layers deepened the stakes, showing Marcus's strategic love and Ivy's readiness, as the reception's silence waited for her voice to turn cruelty into triumph. Ivy's small figure moving toward the microphone was a moment frozen in time. The barn's string lights casting a halo around her as 200 guests held their breath, the air thick with the scent of roses and stunned anticipation. Dolores stood frozen, her saccharine smile faltering, the microphone trembling in her hand as my 8-year-old daughter approached with a confidence that belied her years. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint clink of a glass set down too hard, the room's warmth turning cold under the weight of Dolores's cruel words. I sat paralyzed, my hands gripping the lace tablecloth, Marcus's knuckles white beside me, Tessa half risen with fury in her eyes. But Ivy, clutching her beaded purse with its tiny firefighter charm, moved with purpose, her pale pink dress swishing softly on the wooden floor. What unfolded next wasn't just a response to a vicious attack. It was a declaration of our family's unbreakable bond, orchestrated by Marcus's foresight and delivered by Ivy's unwavering courage. "Excuse me, Grandma Dolores," Ivy said, her voice clear and polite, cutting through the tension like a bell in fog. "May I please have the microphone? My new daddy, Marcus, asked me to read something if anyone said mean things about my mom." The room stilled further, a pin-drop hush, as Dolores's face cycled through shock, horror, and panic, her hand shaking as she passed the microphone down. Ivy took it with both hands, holding it close, just as Marcus had practiced with her 2 weeks prior in our living room, the air then filled with the cozy scent of popcorn and trust. She opened her purse, the beads glinting under the lights, and pulled out the blue envelope, unfolding Marcus's letter with careful fingers. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice ringing through the sound system, steady despite her small stature. "My name is Ivy, and I'm the flower girl. My new daddy wrote me a letter to read if someone said something mean about my mom. So, here it is." The words hit like a thunderbolt, guests leaning forward, some already tearing up as Ivy read, her tone serious but clear. "Dear wedding guests, if you're hearing this letter, it means someone has questioned whether Serena deserves to be my wife, or whether our family is less than perfect. Let me be clear. I didn't settle when I married Serena. I hit the jackpot." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, heads nodding as Marcus's pride shone beside me, his hand finding mine under the table. "Serena is not damaged goods or a consolation prize," Ivy continued, her voice growing stronger. "She's not someone with baggage. She's a woman who loved her daughter so much she left a bad marriage to give Ivy a better life. She worked night shifts as a nurse, caring for sick kids while her own slept, just to keep them afloat. She built a home where Ivy feels safe and loved." My hands pressed to my mouth, tears streaming as guests wiped their eyes, some of Dolores's friends shifting uncomfortably. "When I met Serena and Ivy," Ivy read on, "I didn't see complications. I saw a family that loves unconditionally. Ivy isn't an obligation, she's a gift. I'm not taking on someone else's child. I'm welcomed into a family teaching me real love." The emotion swelled, Tessa sobbing openly, Dane's head in his hands, mortified. Ivy took a breath, delivering the final blow. "To anyone who thinks Serena should put me before Ivy, you don't understand the man I am. I fell in love with her because she puts Ivy first. That's not a flaw. It's the kind of mother I want for our future children. She loves me more because she's proven she knows how to love with her whole heart." The silence that followed was profound, then applause erupted, starting with a lone clap from the back, swelling into a standing ovation, cheers and whoops filling the barn. Ivy, wide-eyed at the response, folded the letter carefully, then climbed onto my lap, grabbing the microphone again. Also, my mom makes the best pancakes ever, so Daddy Marcus is really lucky, she added, her grin sparking laughter that broke the tension like sunlight through clouds. Guests roared, clapping louder, as Dolores slipped away, her absence unnoticed in the joy. My additions amplified the moment. A guest, Marcus's fire chief, whispered to his wife about Ivy's bravery, later sharing his own blended family story. Ivy's teacher, in the crowd, caught my eye, mouthing proud as she clapped, having helped Marcus with the letter's phrasing. The barn's rafters seemed to hum with the applause, lights twinkling brighter, as if the venue itself celebrated our triumph. Tessa, snapping photos of Ivy on my lap, vowed to frame the letter beside our wedding picture. These threads wove the scene into a tapestry of love, turning Dolores's attack into a testament to our family's strength, setting the stage for the emotional aftermath that would reshape our bonds. The applause that followed Ivy's reading of Marcus's letter lingered like the echo of a perfect chord, reverberating through the barn's wooden beams as the string lights flickered, casting a warm glow over the faces of 200 guests now standing, cheering, and wiping tears. The air, scented with roses and the faint tang of spilled wine, buzzed with an energy that transformed the night from one of potential ruin to a celebration of unyielding love. Ivy, still clutching the microphone on my lap, beamed with a mix of pride and surprise, her small hands tucking the letter back into her beaded purse, the firefighter charm jingling softly. Marcus's arm around us both felt like a fortress, his eyes shining with a love that anchored me against the storm Dolores had unleashed. Tessa, practically vibrating with triumph, leaned over, whispering, "That was epic," her mascara smudged from happy tears. But Dolores was gone, her absence a silent admission of defeat. Leaving the room to revel in the moment, my 8-year-old daughter had turned humiliation into a testament of our family's worth. Guests surged toward our table in waves, their voices overlapping in a chorus of support, the barn's wooden floor creaking under their steps. Marcus's fire chief approached first, his grip firm as he shook Marcus's hand, the scent of his aftershave mingling with the evening's floral notes. "That was leadership," he said, voice gruff with respect. "You protected your family with class." A couple from his station shared their story of blending 3 kids, their words warm as they hugged me, affirming our choice. My colleague from the hospital, her scrubs swapped for a sparkly dress, spoke of her stepfather's unwavering love, her eyes misty as she squeezed Ivy's shoulder. Even older guests, whom I'd feared might echo Dolores's judgment, shared tales of second-chance families, their stories weaving a tapestry of acceptance that wrapped us in warmth. Ivy basked in the attention, her curls bouncing as kids begged to hear the letter again, treating her like a pint-sized hero, while adults praised her bravery, one calling her the star of the night. Tessa, ever the guardian, ensured the photographer captured Ivy holding the letter, her pink dress glowing against the barn's rustic backdrop, insisting it was history in the making. Dane approached an hour later, his face flushed with embarrassment, the clink of his glass against the table underscoring his words. "I've never been more ashamed of Mom," he said, voice low. "What she did was unforgivable, but you 3, you handled it with grace. You've got my support, always." His apology, sincere and heavy, eased some of the sting, though the wound Dolores left still throbbed beneath the surface. The reception roared back to life, dances more spirited, laughter louder, as if Ivy's courage had unlocked a deeper joy. Guests twirled under the lights, the DJ spinning upbeat tunes that drowned out the earlier tension, the air now rich with celebration and cake frosting's sweet scent. The night's magic carried forward, transforming the memory from one of conflict to one of triumph. Marcus and I danced again, Ivy between us, her giggles blending with the music, the moment sealed in photos that captured our trio's unbreakable bond. But Dolores's absence lingered like a ghost, her retreat a silent acknowledgement that she'd miscalculated. I wondered where she'd gone, slipping out a side door perhaps, the gravel crunching under her heels as she fled the weight of her own words. The guests' stories stayed with me, each one a reminder that our family, unconventional as it was, resonated with so many. A grandmother from Marcus's church shared how her stepson had become her own, her voice cracking over her wine glass, urging me to keep shining. Ivy, now a celebrity, led a conga line of kids, her laughter a beacon that drew smiles even from strangers. My additions deepened the aftermath. Marcus's fire crew started a family fund, slipping donations into our gift box for Ivy's future, their camaraderie a shield against judgment. A guest, an elderly neighbor, gifted Ivy a journal to write her brave thoughts, her hands trembling as she shared her own story of overcoming family scorn. Tessa organized an impromptu toast, raising her glass to the Walsh-Thompson trio, sparking cheers that echoed into the night. The photographer caught a candid shot of Dane hugging Marcus, a rare brotherly moment that hinted at healing.